My persuasive speech is on, is God acting in good faith? God is not as great as people think. I think he acts in his own best interest sometimes, and not the interest of human beings. For example, in the Bible, Adam and Eve are told not to eat of the tree of life, or they shall surely die. But God doesn't tell them why they'll die or what dying is. He never mentions about what it means, or about that the serpent will come about and give him his meaning, or their meaning, to them about the tree of life. I will discuss three elements of the King James Version of the Bible: Adam and Eve in the garden, the great flood, and the Ten Commandments. Let us begin with God's greatest gift for himself, man. In Genesis 2, God makes man. God tells man not to eat of the tree of life. The serpent appears, which God made. He tempts Eve, and in Genesis 3:1, quote, "Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord had made." God made man, commands not to eat of the tree, and God sends the serpent to tempt Adam and Eve. Adam eats of the tree, and God punishes Adam and Eve and all humankind to come. Even though Adam and Eve were the only ones to sin, everybody was punished by birth. Let us move on a few years. In Genesis 6, God says, and I quote, "It has repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart." Richard Dawkins, in his book, The God Delusion, states, and I quote, "God took a dim view of humans, so he, with the exception of one family, drowned the lot of them, including men, children, and also, for good measure, the rest of the animals as well. Again, death for the sins of others." Now let us go forward where God finally decides to write down his laws. In the book of Exodus, God gives man a great deal of laws and regulations to follow. We will review three of these 10. The first one being, "Thou shalt have no other gods before me." 2, "Thou shalt not make any graven images or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above." And 3, "Thou shalt not bow down thyself unto them." Deuteronomy 5, 7 through 9. So what is the punishment for not following these rules and regulations? In Deuteronomy 5, verse 9, God says, "God shall visit a punishment upon the family unto and including the third and fourth generations." So again, it is punishing the people that had nothing to do with the sin. Could you imagine being punished for something your grandfather did in World War I? Christopher Hitchens describes this as a celestial dictator. "Worship only me and do as I say, or spend an eternity in hell." Now, I only touched on a few points, but what I want you to do is stop listening to others about God. Read the words in the Bible, not what people say is in the Bible. Read opposition to the Bible. Trust no one. Let me finish with these lasting thoughts. Many times I have heard religious people say, "It's God's plan." Then what happened in the Garden of Eden? Was it God's plan that Adam and Eve would sin? If so, then how do you punish somebody when somebody else does a sin? With the great flood, the intention was to wipe out the evil people, even if it meant killing the just and honest. If God was so great, how could he not just eliminate the evil people and leave the innocent ones alone? 2, I think God's actions or inactions are not always in human beings' best interest. I am sure Adam and Eve wanted to live in the Garden of Eden, and with a little information from God on what it meant to die and about the trees, they surely would have not sinned. Please take time to question all that you have been told and research information for yourself. Get opposing opinions and research them. Find your truth. All those millions of people that never knew God are now punished in hell because of what it says in the Bible, or does not say. Christopher Hitchens states in his book, God is Not Great, Religion Poisons Everything, and I quote, "Take the risk of thinking for yourself. Much more happiness, truth, beauty, and wisdom will come to you that way." Thank you for listening, but most of all, think for yourself.